Hi, I'm Trixie Simons and I'd like to welcome you to the Global Kids Sewing Party of 2022. Now if you're joining in, thank you very much. And if you don't have any idea what the Global Kids Sewing Party is, then pop over onto my blog, Sew a Softie, and look at the little tab that says Global Kids Sewing Party and you'll know what it's all about and hopefully you'll join in too. Well, as a special treat today, I'm going to show you how to make my little friend Circle Zenki. And actually there's two sides to Circle Zenki. There, I did a little face for her on both sides. Now Circle Zenki is very proud and happy to let you know that she is one of the 14 projects in my book, The Zenki Way. Now if you want to learn how to sew your own softies, or which I call Zenkis, then this is the perfect book for you. And if you're a parent, teacher or librarian and you would like to teach a group of kids to sew well, The Zenki Way has a special section just for you, telling you all sorts of tips and tricks to help you sew with your kids. Now, let's get on with the show. So, what do you need to make Circle Zenki? Well, let me tell you. Come on. You're going to need 2 pieces of felt. I've chosen 9" by 9", but you can choose any size you want. I've got this little bowl here which I'm going to use to draw my sewing line or the body of Circle Zenki. And I've got this little pencil here. It's a wax pencil or, I forgot the other name, wax pencil. It's by Staedtler. It's called Lumicolor Permanent and it's really great for drawing on all sorts of felts. You're going to need needles. These are Clover Chenille 24s and I use them because they're nice and small and they're perfect because I use ordinary sewing cotton when I sew my softies. And this one is one by Orifel. You're also going to need some pins, a really good pair of scissors to cut, and some scraps of felt for the facial features. And of course, I've almost forgotten that the most important thing is the stuffing. So I think we're ready to begin. So let's just move everything out of the way. And the first thing I'm going to do is I've got my 2 layers of felt here and I'm going to draw my circle, which is the body of Circle Zenki. Now remember, you want to leave or have a border all around the edges because these are going to be her arms, legs, hair, whatever you want to add to her. Okay, so let's see. This pencil is great because it actually rubs off easily and it's not quite as messy as a graphite pencil. Okay, now I'm going to, you could at this stage if you want to put on any facial features, but I'm going to do that at the ends today. So that what I'm going to do now is, firstly, I'm just going to pin the 2 layers of felt together. And then I'm going to thread my needle. So I'm going to take my chenille needle and I'm going to show you how I thread. Okay. So I've got the end of my thread which I'm going to hold on the fingers and I'm going to pull the end of the thread if you can see, and the other end I'm going to take to my shoulders and then I'm going to cut. Now here is my needle. There are different ways of threading a needle. I'm going to show you today just one of the methods. If you need other ways of threading the needle, you can just go to my other YouTube post. So I've just got a tiny little bit at the end there and I'm going to just put it through the needle. Okay, and now I'm going to bring the 2 ends of my thread together. And there are different ways of making a knot, and of course I've got a YouTube tutorial about how to make the knot. Here's just one of quite a fun trick to tying a knot. So I'm going to get the eye of the needle. I'm just going to put it on my finger there and my thumb there to hold it. I'm going to get the 2 ends of the thread and I'm going to put them right next to the eye of the needle, put my thumb over it And now I'm just going to do a couple of wraps. Let's do 1, 2, 3, let's do 4 wraps. So as you can see there, and I'm going to very gently pull them to the end, and hopefully I have a knot. Yes, I do. Bit of a messy knot, but it's still a knot. Okay, now let's start the sewing. Now I'm just going to turn a little around. Now I'm going to start in between the 2 layers of felt, and I'm going to bring the needle up. So there it's knotted in, but just to make it really, really secure, I'm going to do a double stitch. To do that, I'm just going to go back a little bit and forward and come in more or less the same place you started. And I'm just going to go over that one more time just to make sure it's really secure, because you don't want your thread or stitching coming out after all that work. Now I'm going to do a running stitch all the way around until I get to about here, and I often will draw just a little line there so kids know when to stop. So we have our stuffing gap here. So how do I do a running stitch? Well, it's just basically up, down, and pull. I don't take my needle to the back because there's no line to see there, and I just think it's easier for kids. So I go down and up. Okay. Sometimes I just get the kids to feel, as soon as the needle hits the table, they can feel it and gently push up. One of the kids in my classes once told me it should be called a diving stitch, not a running stitch. And I actually agree. I think that's a much better description of this stitch. So here we go. It's a running stitch. Just keep going along the circle. And I always remind the kids, and this is very important, when they have about this much thread left, to stop and end their thread, because if they sew right up until the end where their needle is, it's going to be impossible to end their thread. So I'm just going to keep on going. And if you ever have any questions, you can email me or leave a comment below, and I'm always happy to answer questions. Now, as you can see, I've got, getting to the end of my thread. So I'm going to do one more stitch. And now I'm going to end it. And how do I end it? Just the same way that I started. I'm going to go backwards. Actually, I'm going to just do a bigger stitch like that. So there's a nice gap, and I'm going to go backwards and forwards into more or less the same place where the thread has come up through the felt. And I've got one stitch, and I'm going to do the same stitch again. So now you have this little double stitch, and now to get rid of the end of the thread, I'm just going to put the needle through that little sort of mark there where the stitch is, and I'm going to push it in between the 2 layers of felt, and that hides the thread, and there we go. Now we're going to need to thread our needle again. So I'm just going to do exactly this. I'm just going to take it, the thread, pull it out, take it to my shoulder, and snip. There's a really nice little method where I put the thread through a little piece of paper, but I seem to have lost my paper, so it doesn't matter. It's you'll find that on my YouTube tutorial. About threading a needle, but I'll show you again when you do the little thread. Just, you don't want a long bit of thread popping out, just a tiny bit makes it easier, and straight through the needle. You're going to bring the 2 ends together. Yep. There are my 2 ends, yep. And I'm just going to show that other way, the same way that I knotted it. The eye of the needle between your thumb and forefinger, get the two ends of the thread, put them in the same place, and we're going to start a couple of wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now you're just going to very carefully pull the wraps to the end, and there we have our knot again. Okay, to start, I'm going to go through the 2 layers of felt again. Needle comes up. Remember, we always end and start with a double stitch, so I'm going to go backwards and forwards, and I'm going to do this exactly the same again, and this time I'm just going to take my needle a little bit further along the line so that you can start your sewing. And this line is great for kids to sew on because they know exactly where they're going. Don't forget, if you're joining the Global Kids Sewing Party, to send me lots of photos or videos of what your kids are sewing. Okay, now we're getting really close to when we have to stuff. So, okay, just do it here now. Hope I remembered everything. So now I'm just going to leave, I can take my pin out because you don't need it anymore. And I've got my circle and my sewing line. Now, at this point again, you could add your facial features now, but I'm going to leave mine to the end. But before I stuff it, I want to draw on her arms and legs. So as you can see, this little girl has long arms and here's her hair. I'm going to draw them on. I'm going to make a little baby one for her. So I'm going to, where's my ruler? Here we go. So I want her to have hair at the top. So I'm just going to draw the lines. No, that's not very straight. I'll do a line there. And it's about there, that should be right. Yeah. Now her arms are going to go around here. So I'm just going to draw lines there. And there. And I'm going to put her legs here and about here. Oh, actually, I'll do that a bit wide. Let me just see. I think I should do it. Comes out. Okay, this is going to do a bit further over. And a bit, okay, something like that. Your kids will know what they want to do more or less. They're probably better than me at designing their Zenkis. Okay, so now I want to cut it out, and I'm just going to start cutting around. When you cut around the sewing line, you'll see you leave about 1/4 inch. Now this is pretty thick felt because it's wool felt, so you might have thinner felt, which is probably better for the kids. Okay, so I'm going to cut the leg out. Now, you want to make sure your needle is far away from your scissors, so you don't want to cut the thread. So now I'm just going to cut. Now remember, I'm cutting around, 1/4 inch-ish around the sewing line. And there's my arms up there. Okay, great. Just going to cut from here. Oops, Daisy. Kids are usually much better, I think, at designing Zenkis than adults. I always get the kids in my classes and my own kids to design them for me because I think they do a much better job. And I never interfere with kids' creativity because they always do such an amazing job. Okay, that's about right. I'll just cut a bit over there. Okay, remember about 1/4 inch away from the sewing line. Oops. Just going to cut her other leg out and then cut in the middle. Just turn it around. Okay, so following the sewing, I'm just going to cut it out. Now, her legs are too, I want to give her short little arms and legs, so I'm just going to cut and make her legs a little shorter. And I'll cut her arms a little shorter too. These little scraps of felt that I've got left here are really great to keep because they use them on the facial features. They work really well. Now, as you can see, there's I've done a little. I'll show you here. See, this little girl's got a pink arm and a green arm and pink and green legs, so you can actually chop or cut the top layer or bottom layer of either the legs and arms just to get different effects. So I'm just going to cut the top green layer off. Now make sure that the pink arm is out of the way, and I'm just going to cut the green arm off. Now she's got her little pink arm, and I'm going to do the same with this leg over here. If you want to flip the pink leg out of the way so you don't cut it off, and there we go. So, and if you want, you can take the pink leg off the back if you want, or you can leave it there, it doesn't matter. Now, almost forget, I'm going to give her hair, but I think I'm going to give her, just like her mum, I'm going to give her pink hair. So instead of cutting through the two layers, I'm just going to cut the top layer of green off. Remember, I'm going to just flip that around, and I'm just going to cut the green layer off, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so now I've got her pink hair, and I want to give her little fringes. So actually, I think I might make her hair a little bit shorter because she's only a little baby, so she doesn't really have that long hair. Of course, that's one of the fun things, cutting hair. Okay, now to cut her hair, looks like I haven't cut that straight at the end. I'm just going to cut that straight a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to cut one slit in the middle, and then I'm just going to keep on cutting the middle of these two, and now the middle of these two, middle of these two slits, middle, and middle. Okay, now let's have a look at her. I think I might make her legs a little shorter. I think they need to be little, so I'm just going to snip there, and I'm just going to cut the pink leg off the back because I don't want that there, but of course you can leave it. So I'm just going to go cut that off. Okay, and of course we've got to cut this leg off a little bit to match the other one. And yeah, I think the arms need to be a bit shorter too. There. And I'm going to cut the little arm off the back, the pink one, which we don't want. And of course, we want this arm a little shorter too. Now, I think I've done everything, and I think we are now ready to stuff my little girl. So, here's a big wad of stuff. You don't want to stuff the whole thing in there because it makes it a bit lumpy. You take little pieces of stuffing, sort of roll it up in your hand and start pushing it through right to the end of your circle zenki. You can use a pencil if you have, or something, just to get it right to the ends, and you just keep on adding little rolls of balls of stuffing, pushing in with your fingers pencil, whatever's best for you. Oops. And of course, this is Softie's or Zenki's favorite part when they get their stuffing, because it makes them feel real, because they are. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, and let's just have a look at her. I think she needs just a tiny bit more stuffing. Okay, and a little bit down here. Okay, I think she's feeling very good. Now, I'm going to just push the stuffing a little bit away from that sort of sewing line, and I'm going to pin it there to keep the stuffing out of the way while you sew. Okay, so you're going to keep on sewing your running stitch. Oops, let's get rid of some of my bits and pieces. So the sewing up, down. If your thread tangles, just give it a little pull. It does that sometimes because it's just been on a roll for too long. There we go. Okay, and there's your line there, so in case you can't see it, you can either draw the line again or just draw the line with your needle. Okay, so now I've got my last stitch, and I'm going to do my back stitch. So I'm going to go backwards and forwards, again backwards and forwards, and I'm going to take the needle through that last little place where you put the needle, and I'm going to take it between the two layers of felt, and I'm going to carefully snip it, and I'm going to take my pin out and give her a little shake just to make sure that the stuffing gets everywhere. And now I'm ready to put on her facial features. So I've already got some bits cut out. I've got two little eyes, glued the pupils on, and I've got a mouth for her, and of course, because she wants to look just like her mum, sorry, I'm going to give her this little lock. Okay, so I've got my glue gun. I did forget to tell you about glues. Now, glues can be a little bit tricky when you're working with felt. Some of the fabric glues don't work on felt, so it's a little bit of testing to see what works to glue. So I'm just using a glue gun today. So I'm just going to a little glue, and let's put the first eye on. I'm going to put it there. And you can test, having the eyes closer or further and see what you like. I think I like her eye about there, so I'm going to get a bit more glue. You can see my cat, hear my cat in the background. Okay, and I've got her mouth. Of course, you can sort of play around before you glue on, do you like it further up? I'll just turn her around so you can see her perhaps better. Do you want the mouth further up, down, in the middle, longer, shorter? Just play around and see whatever you like. So I'm just going to put her mouth about. I think it looks good there. So I'm going to get some glue again. And I think I'll put it about there. And of course her little lock, just like her mum, will go about there. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue at the end. I'm not going to glue it all down so that the lock will actually flip up a little bit. So let's get the glue. And we're just going to put it right there. So I think we're all done. So here's your little Circle Zenki. You can make her however you want. Please send photos if you make her. And happy Global Kids Sewing Month, and hope you have a wonderful time. And don't forget, if you like the video, I'd love you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye.